do not put a bunch of capital into something because you're passionate about it and you think it can be a great idea and then just hope that it's going to work out. I've actually seen a lot of doctors put a bunch of their own capital into an idea that they're excited about, but they don't have a plan beyond that. So I think there's ways that doctors can both protect themselves and be a lot less risky about some of the ideas they want to start. And again, surrounding yourself with people that are going to have your best interest in mind. I have a physician community that this is all we focus on. And I do this because I think that physicians really need to have a say in the things that are being developed in healthcare. I am concerned for healthcare of the future. I see the changes that are coming. I see how deeply we need this physician expertise and how high the demand is and how much it's needed for safety. And I myself am most driven by impact and purpose. And I know a lot of physicians, that's how they feel too. And so my ultimate goal is to create pathways for physicians to be able to feel safe entering this space, to explore it, to have fun, to make extra money, and to really be able to guide the development of healthcare solutions for our patients in a safe and equitable way.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Your Business, Your Next Level. I'm your host, Eunicia Peret, and today I have a special guest here with me, Dr. Alison Curfman. She is a practicing pediatric emergency physician who co-founded Imagine Pediatrics and scaled it to a multi-nine-figure valuation in just under 2 years. So let me just make a parentheses and make a comment here. That is not something that is easily attainable, not in 2 years. And this is huge in terms of what Alison has done. She's a strategic advisor to healthcare startups and venture firms, helping founders build clinically sound solutions and investors identify healthcare opportunities that will actually work in practice. In other words, she was able to, as the founder of Startup Physicians, take this mission that she has to create pathways for other physicians to make an impact at scale by entering the startup world as advisors, consultants, and founders. And before we go ahead and welcome Alison to the show, I'd like to also let you know that while she's a physician and we talk a lot to physicians, this also applies to business owners and entrepreneurs that are thinking, well, could they pivot into perhaps other industries? And the answer, or other areas of expertise, and the answer is yes, you can. So without further ado, Alison, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you here with us today.
Thank you. I've been looking forward to this.
Well, likewise. So let's dive straight in. Tell us a little bit about you're still practicing and this mission that you have about helping physicians, especially those that are thinking of, gee, they have to get an MBA or they have to get additional training or they have to get additional something under their belt before they can do the thing that perhaps is going to give them that breathing room that they're looking for. How did you get started? Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah. So all of my career, every weird path that I've taken has stemmed from my clinical practice itself. So I trained in pediatrics and then I did an extra 3 years in pediatric emergency medicine. And as I went through my training and finished training, it just was glaringly obvious how many big problems there are in the healthcare system. And when you're training, you kind of have your head down and you're learning a lot. But then as you're getting more experience in the system, you start to realize, isn't there a different way we can do some of these things? Are there ways that we could change things to make this better for the patients that we're serving? And I remember that one of the things that got me really started in the whole digital health and telehealth space, which really launched my career in this direction, was actually a patient case where I was working in the ER at a large children's hospital, and a rural hospital called us with a transfer patient that was a toddler. And they just said, he's really sick. We don't know what's wrong. We have to get him to pediatric care as fast as possible. We're putting him on a helicopter. And I had no information. I couldn't provide any guidance. I couldn't see him. I couldn't talk to the patient. And they did put him on a helicopter right away, but he had an unrecognized head injury and unfortunately had brain swelling and died on that flight. And I remember being so devastated. I realized that, if I could have only seen him, like done a FaceTime call or a telehealth visit, which was, this was before telehealth was widespread. I thought maybe I could have guided them or provided this poor outside hospital more support, and maybe there could have been a different outcome. And just drives it home when we see the impact on patients for some of the less developed ways that we deliver healthcare. And I remember thinking, this is a readily available technology. Why aren't we using it in our day-to-day practice? That was really the starting point for me. And it's always been my anchoring point, is the experience that I have caring for patients and understanding what it is that children need from the healthcare system that they're not getting today. I ended up moving into a role where I was designing a lot of virtual care programs and particularly focused on children with medical complexity. These are kids with tons of healthcare needs. They have so much trouble navigating the system. They end up spending a lot of time in the hospital. It's a very small portion of the peds population, but they make up a lot of Medicaid spend. And we designed a model to provide more support to these families using a lot of interventions that are digital and virtual, and just providing more connection points with these families. And we were able to demonstrate that we reduced their hospitalizations by 35% just by supporting these families more. And again, like, none of this is rocket science. I'm telling you these stories because it seemed so obvious to me at the time, but there's a lot of uphill battles to doing things in the traditional healthcare system. It's very hard to make changes. So I was able to do this pilot program, but didn't have funding to make this scale. And that's when I really pivoted into the startup space. We actually lost our funding for the complex care program at my hospital, but I knew it was really valuable. And I had published the results. I ended up getting recruited to a firm in Nashville that was wanting to build a company for complex kids. I was like a fish out of water. I felt like I got plucked out of a hospital in Missouri and dropped into a venture firm. I didn't know any of the terms or any of the, contracting or any of that, but I did know deeply what these kids needed, what the patients needed, where the challenges were. And so I spent a year at this firm incubating the company and really designing our model of care around what do these children and their families need? How can we work with Medicaid to get these solutions and to build a business that really aligns all the incentives? And we launched Imagine Pediatrics in early 2023. And as of now, what year is it? Now it's 2026. So yeah, we reached a multi-9-figure valuation in less than 2 years. And we just raised $70 million to take this nationwide. And we're caring for close to 100,000 Medicaid children at this point by just really providing a ton more support for their families, like a level of care that these sorts of patients have never received before. And building a business that's sustainable, I felt like it was so important to build something that could sustain itself, because I felt like early on, like when I did this at a nonprofit, I felt like I failed those children. We provided them in a great service, but it got shut down, it got discontinued. And so now I was able to see how my clinical expertise, when partnering with the right people, was able to make an impact on hundreds of thousands of children. And this one-to-many impact is really where I'm focused. And I still practice in the ER. I still see kids one-on-one. I love being a doctor and practicing medicine, but I see there being such a desire from other physicians to make an impact, to find solutions to the problems that we see every day, and to create a side income and to explore like ways to be creative. We don't have a lot of options to be creative in day-to-day practice. And so I started this new company, Startup Physicians, to create pathways for doctors who are wanting to enter the venture space, either as advisors or as founders, because I believe that all physicians have already, without an MBA, without any extra training, have a lot of really valuable expertise that can be translated into the industry.
Alison, I'm so appreciative for the work that you're doing, because from our end, we work with a lot of physicians. And as you know, one of the things that we see is physicians that are looking, some of them have just reached this point of perhaps burnout. Some have reached a point of they would much rather prefer to no longer be practicing. However, they love medicine. That's what it's, their heart still beats for that. And as they're looking at what will the future hold, there's this big unknown of, do they need to, I can't tell you how many conversations with physicians that are asking the question of, go get an MBA. Well, okay, now they got the MBA. Now they do what with it? They just became that much more valuable in an environment and a system that they still don't necessarily appreciate or love. And they feel even further away from the thing that they would want to do. What would your guidance be to physicians as well as to other individuals that are thinking of, hey, perhaps get a different path or choose a different direction in their future career trajectory without having to go through and get that additional MBA or get the additional accreditations by simply leveraging what they already know? Where should they be looking to do that?
It's such a great question. And I get asked that a lot because I think physicians in particular, we like to earn gold stars, right? Like we like to be
Yes.
like, oh, I know exactly how to do this. I'm going to go to 8 more years of school. I know exactly how to do this. I'm going to get, a 3-year residency and 5-year fellowship or whatever. It's just, we are used to having these very like rigid and hierarchical pathways to opportunities.
And the
And
more
so
hierarchical it gets, the higher you go, the more hierarchical it gets, right? It
yes,
never
yes.
stops.
And I do have an MBA, so I don't want to be a hypocrite to say like, oh, you don't need an MBA. I got it during my fellowship training and was really preparing for some more like hospital administrative type roles. But I think I learned way more from starting a company than from this MBA program. But I don't think it's necessary because I think what we're missing here is the fact that your value, your expertise is coming from the experience you already have. So what they're looking for is not necessarily someone that's got like they're not looking for an investment banker when they're trying to build a clinical model. They need a physician to really deeply assess like the safety and the workflow and or to be a thought leader for them or to help them with their I mean number of different things, validation studies, other things that you can do. And you'd be using your knowledge as a doctor to do those things. And I mean, I've told people like some of the things that I feel like when I've done this work has like blown the minds of people that I'm working with is when I really describe in detail a patient journey or a clinician journey of like exactly the step by step. I worked with a company recently. I went through like, this is exactly what happens when someone walks in the front door of the ER. And then I walk them through all that. And I know this because I practice emergency medicine, not because I, got an MBA that taught me that. And so I just don't think it's necessary. The other thing is there are so many resources for learning that don't involve a 6-figure degree and 1 or 2 years of time. I think that there's 2 things that everyone has to be doing if they want to make a pivot. One is continuous learning and exploration and just being curious. And that could be something as simple as listening to this podcast and being like, maybe there is something else I could be doing. And, or it could be, taking a course or doing, heck, we have AI now, like go do a deep research on the topic and see where you get, like, we have so many resources at our fingertips to really dig into a topic and say, like, what could it be like for me to do this? Or even just ask, what else could I do with my background as a endocrinologist or something like that? So the number one thing, being curious, continuing to learn, and being open to new opportunities, thinking outside the box. And number 2 is strategic networking. And that is like how you and I met. And it means knowing what you're interested in and actually going out and meeting people that are doing that. And, we have so many tools to do that now. So the 3 top ones that I tell doctors are like, 1, get a LinkedIn profile. You can even use AI to help make it look nice, but like you need LinkedIn if you want to be doing networking in the business world. You can do cold outreach. You can search a bunch of companies in your specialty and just reach out to founders or, product people and just say, hey, I love what you're doing, and then connect with them. That's it. That's one way to grow your network. And maybe an opportunity will come from that. 2 is your own professional society meetings that you're going to anyways for like Like I go to the P meeting almost every year and my husband goes to the neurology meeting. Like these are things that most of us attend on a regular basis. They don't realize that there's, all these companies that are paying tens of thousands of dollars to be there to have exposure to exactly someone like you. And so instead of walking around being like, "Oh, I'm trying to get a bunch of swag and like a bunch of free pens," go have conversations with companies that are directly related to your field and have business development people there and in their booth and learn about them. What are their goals? What are they trying to do with this company? Are they needing any support? Like give them feedback on what you think about their concept. And I've gotten many advisory roles out of that. So that is also strategic networking. And then 3 is going to things like industry conferences. So I go to a number of like health tech conferences, and that's a great way to connect as well. So whether you're a doctor or a business owner or someone else, those are the 2 things. They seem really simple. Being curious and continuing to learn and being open to the fact that like there could be so many futures out there for you that are not what you're doing right now, and trying to adopt that abundance mindset that there are millions of pathways you could take. There's not just one. And then 2, going out and meeting the people, surrounding yourself with people that are doing these things. Because if all you're surrounded by is people that are doing the same day to day as you, you're not going to be inspired. You're not going to continue to learn. You're not going to hear about new opportunities. But as soon as you start making these connections, your whole world opens up.
I love where you're going with this, Allison, because literally just about half an hour ago, I got off a call. I'm in a mastermind with Tom Bilyeu. And one of the things that he was talking about very pointedly to someone on that call, it was actually one of the core members, their children, was about skills and how skills have utility. And he was kind of relaying the story of his life and how he came to realize that going deep on the things that he said, what is something that you would love doing every day? This is quote unquote, that would love doing every day, even if you were failing at it, because that's the ultimate definition of success. It's not just money. It's not just income. It is, what is the thing? What are you doing that fuels you every day that you're having fun with? Because then you can go deeper on those skill sets that you talked about. And Tom did a beautiful job talking about them as well, in figuring out how do you move the needle. And because skills have utility, you're inherently going to go deep. The other thing that you mentioned that is huge, and I'd love for us to ponder on just a little bit on this idea of, especially in the physician world. Not only though, there are a lot of entrepreneurs that have been burnt. And when I say burnt, I'm speaking at it from the financial services industry, right? As you know, Excelsior is a quarterback company where we truly are the unbiased partner to our clients from a financial perspective. And one of the things that we see is that especially physicians, because they've gotten into the wrong type of partnerships, they've worked with the people that perhaps were not necessarily unbiased toward their success for one reason or another, they are now afraid of making a move. And I'm not just talking about choosing a financial team. I'm talking about in general, making a move towards the next thing in their career and their profession and the direction that they want to go towards. One of the things that was big, and you talked about the conference that you and I met each other at, was how many individuals, because of the fear of the unknown, and you beautifully pointed that out, is step in and work with the people that have been there, done that successfully. Oftentimes, individuals have a tendency of following the herd mentality. Well, they're going to invest in whatever they're going to invest in. They're going to do the thing that everybody else is doing. And then we see them at conferences, and every single person, I have not run into one person there that said, I made it big with these investments. And yet, they're all asking each other, what is the investment that they went in and they did just because it felt like the fact that everybody else was in the same misery, it was going to be okay. How do we spread awareness to individuals? What have you seen? What would you tell physicians out there about think outside of the box, truly think outside of the box and take a chance on yourself and step away from the herd mentality? Because I feel like unless we do that, and I'm not a physician, and yet I'm out there constantly talking about let's step outside of this herd mentality. That's the only way to truly gain success and elevate themselves at the very next level. What are your thoughts on that?
Those are really great thoughts. I can tell a story from when of in a bubble versus when you kind of look outside the bubble. I remember when I was in training, I was asked by someone who was a leader in my program, what do you want to do your research project on? And I was like, I see so many people coming to the ED because they don't have, because of social determinants of health. They don't have the access to the resources they need on the outside to care for their child, and they end up here in the ER. It's a miserable experience for everyone. It's very expensive. It's not necessary. I want to do some studying on like what are the core drivers there or something like that. And he looked at me and he was like, you will never be able to fix this problem. And he's like, I'm talking to you as a mentor and as someone who's been in this field. This is just part of emergency medicine. It is something you have to accept, that your waiting room is going to be full of low acuity patients that don't need to be in the ER. And I don't want you to burn out thinking you can try to fix this. And I remember being like, oh, okay. Like my leader is telling me that like, I can't fix this problem. This is like not touchable.
Never going to go away.
And did I fix the problem? Like, are there still waiting rooms in pediatric hospitals across the country full of low acuity kids that don't have access to the right resources? Yeah, I did not fix the problem. I did not solve the problem, but how are we going to take steps towards a solution? And now I did build something that we are caring for, 100,000 kids, and those kids aren't going to the ER unnecessarily. Like, we're moving the needle. We're finding new ways to do things. And I remember like the ideas I had about what would make a difference in pediatrics. No one in my organization, nobody in my institution was doing those things. And so it did require me to reach outside of my organization and actually connect with mentors and people who were doing something different. And back then it was all about telehealth, that I was really creating a network that, was across the country. And I was, getting to know a lot of people. I ended up starting like a multi-center research network during my training that connected me with all these other people with shared interests and vision for what we wanted to achieve. And then the same thing can be said about my career transition when I went from working as a doctor at a hospital to now incubating a company at a venture firm. I was exposed to all of these backgrounds and minds that solve problems differently. Like they did not at all have the same mentality of, the very hierarchical hospital system where it's really hard to change anything. It's like, oh no, just break the whole thing down. Let's make a whole new system. Let's build it from scratch. And it was really fun. And so I think that your point about getting out of your bubble and being exposed to other ideas and other ways to do things, again, it can be as simple as like listening to podcasts. Like we have so many resources at our disposal. And then there's the risk aspect that you mentioned, like the fear, the risk. I don't want to, like, I am not telling everyone to be as crazy as me and to quit their job and go like move across the country. My husband and I both are physicians. We both quit our jobs and moved to Nashville. And it was like this big risk we took, but not everyone has to go do that level of risk. Like there are a lot of ways to enter and experiment with new ways to use your skills that do not involve very much risk at all. A lot of people start as an advisor or join an advisory board. And, like I said before, reaching out on LinkedIn, like what's the absolute worst thing that can happen? They can like not respond. Like who cares? Like it's just the more you can take a step in multiple new directions, then you'll have more information about what's down that pathway for you and whether it's the right fit or not. I'm constantly exploring new kind of career paths for myself, new things I want to get involved in. And some of them end up being a no, but I would never know that if I don't take like a couple little steps. So people think of the big risk of what might come way down the road, but the first steps in anything are very low risk.
True indeed. And one of the things, as you were talking, Alison, that I realized is that oftentimes, especially physicians, but again, not only, you've got a lot of corporate executives that will have the same kind of predicament of choose one path versus the other. A big consideration almost in every situation is the financial aspect. And what we're seeing from our standpoint is, especially physicians have this fear of, well, if they make the wrong move, they're going to miss out on either the opportunity or possibly even jeopardize what it is that they already have. Obviously, we're not talking about the financial component necessarily or how they can do things differently. But from your perspective, how should physicians think about from a financial standpoint, especially if they don't already have a trusted team of advisors that can look at the different options, option A, B, and C, and have the backups to the backups? What should they be doing on their own to gain that level of confidence of, okay, keep things steady, and at the same time try something else that's new that will get you towards the direction that you want to go towards, so that at some point in time you can actually make that shift? What have you seen working, whether it's be in your personal experience or perhaps working with other physicians?
So I think I'm going to answer in two ways. One is physicians that might be interested in a side career or a transition of their career into more advisory work with venture and companies. You will be exposed to new financial language and concern about risk. Like people are like, well, what? Will I be liable like for the medical work of the company? And how do you calculate equity and what's fair? And I don't understand vesting and all that. Like you absolutely, if you are going to be getting into agreements with companies and you've never done this before, you need guidance. You need a trusted team who can help you interpret things and make sure you're not getting into any sort of contracts that are trouble. I've definitely, I looked at contracts for a ton of physicians, and some of them are, I mean, it's almost humorous. Like they actually have like mapped out a vesting schedule that will never vest. It's like it's a 1-year contract, but it's like vesting over 4 years or something, like, or there's like a 2-year cliff or something. I mean, it's just like silly stuff. And especially if you're working with companies that are like a little bit early themselves, there is room for error. So you definitely want to, again, surround yourself with people who know how to do this. And so you can feel confident with these sorts of like how you know what sort of risks you're taking on in an agreement, but also to make sure you're not getting taken advantage of financially. Our expertise is extremely valuable. And I teach physicians how to price their services to be competitive in the market, totally reasonable for what a company should be expecting to pay. But it's kind of like a sliding scale based on, is this like a really early stage company or is this an established company? And also based on the physician's level of expertise. So I see doctors being very, very nervous about getting taken advantage of financially. And so I provide a lot of guidance and feedback and frameworks and contract templates and services examples and things so that doctors can know like this is what's standard and can be expected in the industry. Then on the other side, I see doctors that want to be founders and they don't have the slightest idea about capital strategy or sometimes even business planning. They'll be like, I have this thing. I know it can make life better for my patients. And I'll ask them like, well, who would buy it? And they're like, I have no idea. So creating like an actual business plan. And then also I've had doctors who are like, well, I want to build this tech thing. And like tech development is very expensive. And they'll be like, well, I think I'm going to just like invest like $30,000 and build the app and then see what I can do with it. And I'm like, whoa, like let's talk about MVP, minimum viable product. Let's actually peel this way back. Like you need to identify like, maybe you could get a technical partner. Maybe you could do a build for equity. Maybe you could literally, if you're going to fundraise for this, like don't build the app, build wireframes, like pictures of what the app would look like if you were to develop it. So do not put a bunch of capital into something because you're passionate about it and you think it can be a great idea and then just hope that it's going to work out. I mean, I've actually seen a lot of doctors put a bunch of their own capital into an idea that they're excited about, but they don't like have a plan beyond that. So I think there's ways that doctors can both protect themselves and be a lot less risky about some of the ideas they want to start. And again, surrounding yourself with people that are going to have your best interests in mind. I have a physician community that this is all we focus on. And I do this because I think that physicians really need to have a say in the things that are being developed in healthcare. I am concerned for healthcare of the future. I see the changes that are coming. I see how deeply we need this physician expertise and how high the demand is and how much it's needed for safety. And I myself am most driven by like impact and purpose. And I know a lot of physicians, that's how they feel too. And so my ultimate goal is to create pathways for physicians to be able to feel safe entering this space, to explore it, to have fun, to make extra money, and to really be able to guide the development of healthcare solutions for our patients in a safe and equitable way.
Something that you said led me to a couple of additional points. One that's very much in tandem with what you said. It's almost like a third prong, if you will. We've come across and we've worked with physicians that have actually left medicine to go into other industries altogether. And going back to the planning process, one of the biggest things that they attributed either their success or their failure to was having, going back to right, that unbiased team of experts in that corner that actually were able to preemptively look at what were their current agreements looking like. What about if they were partners in a practice? What did the partnership entail? There was a gentleman, a surgeon that actually left the practice. And by the time we came in, they had already made the deals. And what we realized was that the other partners in the practice did things in such a way where they ensured they went through some huge capital expenditures, ultimately ensuring that the partner that just exited got nothing as compensation for his fair share of the practice, which he had built, by the way. And so that in itself, it kind of goes back to the question of who do you trust? You have to make sure that you trust the people that can be there for you, that can provide the support, and that will also be able to connect you to other experts in the specific thing, that area of expertise that you're looking to gain support in. The other thing was on a conversation in an interview with someone that she's a huge, bright, shining star in the manufacturing space, different industry altogether, having gone through many mergers and acquisitions, many buying and selling of companies. As an attorney herself, one of the things that she said is she realized after the first few transactions that having somebody in her corner that truly provided her unbiased support, meaning they were not in any way associated with the success or the failure of what she was about to do, actually provided her that visibility into who can she trust. And she said you would be surprised, especially for highly trained and highly compensated industries such as physicians, such as attorneys, such as truly highly skilled industries. A lot of those individuals think that they're smart enough, they ought to be able to do it on their own. And the reality is they're super smart in their area of expertise. Stay focused on that because people's lives depend on that, on
Yeah.
your knowledge, your expertise, and work with people, partner with people that can actually help you and find a success that Alison, you're talking about.
Oh, yeah. I tell everyone who's starting a business, like, be really lean in everything. Like, don't use a ton of tools. Don't put a ton of capital into a new solution until you know where you're going with it, but never skimp on your lawyer or your CPA.
And I'm here to tell you that most CPAs, I would say 99.99% of CPAs, we would not bring on. So when you're thinking about your CPA, there are some things that you need to be aware of. Here's a little tidbit of information. If you're the person going to your CPA with constant questions of what else, what more could you, should you be doing, you're probably working with a wonderful CPA, amazing individual, not the type of CPA that you need in order to truly make a difference to your bottom line. So I'll get off that soapbox, but that is a conversation we can go a lot more in depth, and it's very applicable, especially to physicians. Alison, this has been an amazing interview. I've had a ton of fun. It's been a very successful episode because we've taken some deep dives. As we approach the end of our time here together today, what are one or two things that you would love to part with our listeners because of the experience that you've seen and because perhaps of things that you're seeing currently taking place in the industry?
You're needed. Your expertise is needed. It's extremely valuable. If you don't believe me, just borrow my belief while you explore, because I think that any doctor that I've introduced to this space and or even like brought to a health tech conference, they're like, "Oh, wow, you always said they wanted us, but they really need us." And I'm like, "Yeah." So you are very, very needed. Your expertise is incredibly important and valuable. And I urge people to get involved. I have my own podcast as well. It's called Startup Physicians. And I also have a course to train doctors on how to become advisors. It's at startupphysicians.com. And along with that, we have a community. We have a free community. We have an incubator program for physician founders. We have a matching program with venture studios and stuff. So I would love to connect with anyone in your audience who's interested in learning more. You can also find me on LinkedIn if you want to connect.
Love it. Love it. Alison, I appreciate you sharing those resources with our listeners. And as you're out there listening, you may, if you've made it this far and you're not a physician, you're probably thinking, what was the takeaway from this? Here's the big takeaway. The big takeaway for you, especially if you're not a physician, is the following. The reality is that your life, the lives of those that you love, is being impacted actively by the physicians that are taking care of those that are dear and near to you. And the reality is, hear it from me, hear it from Alison, hear it from just about any of the physicians out there. Many of them, most of them are struggling. They're struggling with burnout. They're struggling with a system that is very inefficient. They're struggling every single day. And some of them are even asking themselves the question of, what will they do in the next 10 years? And so while this may not necessarily apply to you as an individual, because you're not a physician, it applies to other people in your sphere of influence. Be kind to them, help them understand that you understand them. And one of the best ways for you to do that is connect them to the right people. You can connect them to us. You can connect them to Alison. Let us know, even if you have somebody in your network that needs that connection, we'd be happy to charter it for you. And then, of course, if you're a physician, it goes without saying that this conversation is super, super targeted to your needs and to the things that, frankly, you could be doing to get more breathing room and to continue doing all the things that you enjoy doing as a physician. So until next time, stay tuned for your next episode of Your Business, Your Next Level. Alison, thank you once again for being here with us. And a big ask for you as you're listening to this is we want to know, what was a big takeaway for you from our episode with Alison today? She gave a lot of value. She shared a lot of things that are hard to find out there. Let us know what stood out to you the most and make sure that you go in and you rate the show.
Thank you for joining us on Your Business, Your Next Level podcast, where it is all about helping you make more, keep more, and elevating your business to the next level. To learn more, make sure you head over to www.podcast.extelstra.com and don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show. Again, that's podcast.excelstra.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.